So welcome back to the podcast. My name is Joseph Clough and this is episode 561. Now, if you're listening to this on the podcast or the app, where you can just download the free hypnosis app at freehypnosis.app on Android and also on iPhone. But this is being broadcasted live. Excuse me, I need to cough now. This is being broadcasted live, as you can tell, with the cough there. And today we're talking about remembering who you are. Now, I think sometimes we can get lost. We can get lost into the events and the sequences that we go through in life. Because life is life, and it will throw quite a lot of things at us. Those trials and tribulations, the people, the situations, the economy, the culture, all those things, it's always around us. And every day we're interacting, obviously, with the external world. And based on our thoughts, our perceptions, our reactions, the decisions with relating to those things will dictate who we are. But I don't think it's really who you are, but it's what we began to believe. Maybe we believed we weren't enough. You ever felt that way? Maybe we didn't feel we were good enough. Maybe we didn't feel we were capable. Maybe we had a dream as a child to have to do something, to be someone, and then somewhere along the line and along the way, we forgot it. It was almost like we became an adult, or maybe we were hypnotized by the external world that made us feel like we weren't enough. Maybe because someone said something, maybe someone did something. And I think sometimes if we're told a certain story, and I'm saying story for great reason, if we've been told a certain story, we can begin to buy into that story. We can begin to almost believe in it so much that it becomes our reality. But it's not the real reality. Because way before that person did or said, or the way that you acted or reacted in those situations, that wasn't who you are. Maybe we're at this point right now because of those events, but I think beneath the surface, you and I both know something different. Although that anxiety, that fear, that worry, that doubt, that dread can really cloud our judgment, because we're taking in the world via our five senses. And that's millions of bits of information at any given moment. Now, as we take it in for our five senses, our visual, our auditory, our kinesthetic, our olfactory, and our gustatory, our mind, our unconscious mind, is trying to figure it out. It's trying to make sense of the world. But how does your mind make sense of the world around you? Well, it does in many, many ways. It tries to make sense by your past experience, because your past experience is almost an evidence procedure. Because that means if you've been through something in the past, it might be something which could happen in the future, and therefore, it's going to try to replicate the same old conditioned responses that we've actually been repeating, these habits that we've been repeating. Now, when these things become habits, they may seem like our identity, but it goes deeper than that, because it's not just about our memories that build up the framework of how we see the world around us, and more importantly, how we see ourselves when we look in that mirror. But it's about the decisions that we've made. What unconscious decisions, not conscious decisions, have you made in your life? Maybe it was the decision to take on that story. Maybe it was a situation that happened to us, and because it was so significant to us, it was a significant emotional event. Maybe we didn't know better because of that too. That we then decided, well, this must be who we are, because that event told us so, or because of that person, that situation. Could be the economy, it could be the world itself. So we make decisions. Now, what else do those decisions and memories become? Well, eventually they become our belief systems. You see, we have belief systems which we will fight tooth and nail over, even sometimes when we're wrong, because those belief systems make sense of the world. It tries to make sense of who we are. Because if you believe in something, you have some substance in your perception. But those beliefs are too sometimes misguided. And if those beliefs are misguided, say for example, I don't feel worthy, I don't feel deserving, I don't feel capable, I don't feel like I'm enough, I fear of what other people think of me, that imposter syndrome, that self-doubt, all of those things. Those beliefs will cultivate your perception. So now when you're taking in all that information around you through your five senses, you're making sense out of it by the beliefs you hold about yourself and the world, the decisions you've made unconsciously, and I will say this with good and great intentions, usually protective. And on top of that, our memories, our associations. And it formulates our identity. It formulates what we think we are. But it's not who you are. But that identity will dictate your capabilities, how you show up in the world. If you don't believe that you're enough, then of course your capabilities are shrinking by the moment. When you go into that situation, you're going to think, I don't have the ability, the capability, to be able to deal with it or to be that way. Now, if I have a limited set of capabilities, excuse me, let me mute myself again. When I have a limited sense of capabilities, then my behaviors become less and less. The things what I do in my environment. And then of course, what I do in my environment won't be to my best of my ability, my true self. And therefore it will reinforce that identity that we have about ourselves. So it becomes that vicious kind of cycle. And obviously it reaffirms our identity in who we think we are. I mean, of course, if you were to somehow flick the switch, click your fingers and go, well, I'm going to change that belief system. I'm going to cleanse my past. I'm going to let go of those limiting decisions and decide something new about myself. Maybe that I am worthy. Maybe that I am deserving. Maybe I am capable. Maybe I am absolutely worthy of my desires and my dreams. All of those things. I mean, of course, your capacity is greatly increased. And the good news there is you start doing things which then reaffirms that capacity. But on top of that, you show up differently to the world. And then you get the results that you want, and therefore it reaffirms that identity of I am enough or I am worthy. Now, if we really think about this, we've got to make sure that our unconscious mind has to remember the truth. You see, before you came into this world, or as you were coming into this world, you were, I believe, to the greater or bigger degree, a whole person. You didn't have the concept of identity. You didn't have a label for who you are. You didn't have a set of behaviors which either served you or broke you down. You didn't have those limiting decisions because you didn't have the experience to decide anything different. So way back then, those many, many years ago, you saw the world in a fresh perspective. You saw it through the eyes of just clarity. And then, of course, as we went through the world, we started to then be cultivated by the external world, and therefore our internal world of what we think we are. But we have to remember who we really are. I really believe at the essence of you, I really believe this, that you are whole. that you are complete beneath the surface, beneath all those layers, beneath all those events, beneath all those limiting decisions and belief systems. I think beneath the surface, we are absolutely whole. But we've forgotten. We came into this world and we got hypnotized by the events. And I always see like hypnosis as undoing bad hypnotic spells, bad hypnotic trances. You've been hypnotized by those events to think you are something that you're really, really not. Unless you are free of all those limiting thoughts, of course. We've got to get back to that truth. You've got to remember who you are. And if we take it based on the evidence of your origin, your beginning, it is wholeness. It is beingness. It could be love for you. I know it is for me. And I don't mind what label you do. I mean, I don't care for labels too much. Yes, they can make sense of the world, but sometimes they can make a limitation in the world by buying into that label. I mean, think about it. Have you bought into certain labels about yourself or about the world? The label that money is the root of all evil, that it's hard to come by, or the limiting belief that we don't have what it takes. Those labels are not going to serve us, and we've got to break free of those labels. We've got to realize those were just acquired. They were learned. They were strategies. You see, everything that you do is a strategy. Whether you're getting up in the morning, whether you're getting changed, whether you're eating, walking, talking, it is all endless seeming thought sets and strategies, which some close the loop, so you'll start the strategy and then finish it, but some are just an endless amount of strategies, like the belief that we're not enough. But it is simply a strategy, and if it's a strategy, let's just say it is. I know it is, but let's just say if you were to believe that it was a strategy, that belief system is a strategy. That continuous thoughts, worries, or anxieties and fears were a strategy that you've been replaying in your mind like a broken record. If they were to be a strategy, then we've got to interrupt it. We've got to recognize, number one, that it is a strategy. It's not who you are, it's what you've become. But beneath the surface, you are more than that. That you have that essence within you. And I'm sure you've actually had moments of that. And they could be very far and in between. But maybe when you've been looking out in the world, the ocean, or a wonderful view, maybe an achievement, you go, oh my goodness, life is good. There's that kind of purity. And that purity is still there within us, but we've got to let go of those layers. And the first step is to decide it. To decide that you're actually more than you think you are. You might not believe in it yet, because those beliefs make you feel like that's your identity. Makes it feel like it's a reality. But you must assume that responsibility to decide that whatever I think I think there's more to me to live by. There's more of me to become. Once we make that decision and assume responsibility for not what has happened in the past, because yeah, people have done things to us or situations happened and it was unfair. But we take responsibility for who we are in this moment, because very soon that absolute taking responsibility of the now is going to then become your past. So that means that new set of past is going to cause you to experience more and have more and to really create the life that you want. So assume that responsibility. Recognize and remember what it is good in your life. And there's a couple of ways that we do this. And yes, it's common. It's being grateful for what you do have. But I always say be grateful for what is coming your way too. Look for that miracle. Look for what is good. Look for what is great in the world. Look for the examples of those people that you've actually, overcome the thing that you're going through. If you've got a belief that you're not good enough or you're not worthy, then Look for the people who've had that belief and overcame it. If you have money issues, look for the person who has been in that poverty and overcame it. You'll realize one of the qualities they have is resiliency. They are resilient. They're ready to move forward. They're going to recognize that every event that we go through is our ability to see the challenge within it, to see the learning within it. You see, if you look for the learning, you do not see it as a problem, but an opportunity to grow. You begin to experience something else that wasn't quite recognizable before, but there's a little bit of light there. You're starting to uncover something. When we've been in that darkness, we're looking for that light. We're looking for the examples. So we're assuming that responsibility for what we have and where we're going to be. Decide today. I always say we got to declare it. Decide and declare that even though I've been through these events or experiences, then it is now time to let them go. It is now time to let them go. Even the people in your life who maybe try to bring you down. Sometimes you got to go, that's it, I'm done with them. Sometimes we've got to remember who we surround ourselves with. And if they don't serve us, if they don't really look for us or look out for us, and they just try to take, they try to bring us down for their self-interest, for trying to go on their own way. I think it's so important that we recognize that, look, maybe people in our life aren't serving us. And sometimes those people, we got to recognize we've got to be nicer to ourselves. We're going to remember there's more to us. Sometimes those people, we don't think, but we think about their intentions and we go, look, maybe they just need attention. Maybe they're trying to get kind of forms of validations or experiences, but they shouldn't be taking away from you. Remember, you are the sum of your experience. You're the sum of those that you surround yourself with. Now, if those people are bringing you down, if those people are kind of getting in your way, it is okay to say goodbye sometimes. And it's hard and it's crazy, but sometimes you gotta let things go to allow more in. It reminds me of a story, and I'm gonna get it totally, absolutely wrong. But there were these two people, and you had the master and you had the apprentice. And the master was talking about life, and the apprentice was kind of like asking all these questions and trying to make sense of the world. And he's just said to the apprentice, it's like, you are this glass of water. You are full. As I pour more water in, it's just overflowing. You're missing out on the rest. Sometimes you're going to take that glass of water and pour it so you can allow more into your life. And that goes sometimes to people, but sometimes it goes into those reasons that we have to hold us back. Sometimes we look for justifications as to why we are like we are. Why? Because it's it's almost as if it's a short-term gain, because it makes sense as to why we are like we are. Because I went through this event, of course, this is why I am like I am. It causes me to validate that experience. Now, I understand why we do that. I've done it hundreds of times. But when we go ahead and use those validations or those reasons become excuses. And you're not an excuse to stop yourself. We don't need that. There's more than enough people trying to stop us sometimes. We've got to recognize that when we're looking for the reasons as to why we are like we are, we're actually holding ourselves up. We're getting in our own way. You've got to decide that I'm no longer going to be the reason as to why I cannot be successful. I am not going to be the one who gets in my own way. There's more than enough people in the world who have their own stuff that can project onto us, or the natural events that we go through that can hold us back. So let's not be the person to hold ourselves back. Let's not be that person. Because although it gives us a short-term pleasure of recognizing this is why I am, and by the way, if this is hitting you right now in a way that is pushing up against your beliefs and you're experiencing resistance when I say those words, it's okay. You can either agree or disagree. But sometimes when someone says something and it hits home, we go, oh my goodness, maybe I've got to have a bit of self-reflection here. Maybe I have been holding on to many reasons. Maybe I have given myself excuses. And it's better to recognize it now, and I'll tell you why. Because although it gives you a short-term pleasure, because it gives us a validation as to why we are like we are, the long-term pain of that is horrible. It really, really is horrible if we carry on living by those. But you see, if we can push through that first bit of pain, if we can reverse it and go through that first bit of pain and go, do you know what? It is painful to realize that maybe I've got to let go of some things. Maybe I do have to look at myself in the mirror and go, do you know what? It is hard being this way, but I refuse to never be this way for the long-term future. I'm going to put in the pain now so I can get the long-term gain. Does that make sense to you? Because if you think about it this way, the first way is getting that validation. It lets us off the hook a bit, whether rightly or wrongly. But the long term of that turns into pain long term because we're restricting ourselves. But if we go through that first bit of pain and go, look, I'm going to face what I'm experiencing. I'm going to realize that this breakdown is ready to be my foundation of transformation. This resistance that I'm experiencing within myself and beyond myself is my platform to be the example of what can be done. That I can look within myself and go dive right deep and dig into my core self, who is love, who is oneness, who is peace, who is whole, who is absolutely worthy of my desires. That's what we're looking for. And sometimes we've got to keep on digging. Sometimes it'll take a little bit longer, but you might be this close to your breakthrough. You might be almost there. And once you get to that point, that decision that I am more and I'm ready to change. Once I decide that actually there's more of me to come, there's more of me to experience the world. And when that resistance comes, when there are other people or situations, because it will happen. It will happen. Why? Because you're breaking out the norm. Other people and situations will not recognize this new version of you. So there is going to be a contrasting experience within your environments. But once you recognize that that's okay, that's a period of growth, and it's not a reason to stay the same, we've got to get to that point and go, do you know what? I'm going to embrace the resistance. I'm not going to allow it to bring me down or break me down, but I'm going to cause it to make me become more focused on what is good and what is right. To be the example of what can be done. Be your own example. Wherever, if you have children, to them, whether it be to your partner, whether it be to your brother, or your sister, your mother, whatever. But more importantly, do it for yourself. Recognize that you have the value and the opportunity in every single moment to choose differently. To begin to learn to choose a different thought. To choose a different feeling. And as I said, not only the external resistance will be there, but there'll be that internal resistance because you've got those strategies still in place. You've got those neuro associations of your past, the limiting decisions and the beliefs, even the values, which we didn't really go deeply into. All of those things are going to be telling you, no, it's better to stay the same. It's better to stay in this, I'm not going to say comfort zone, to stay in this familiar zone. But that's not who you are. It's what you become accustomed with. It's what you've developed, and we started to believe in that story. Let's decide a new story today together. Who do you want to be? Where do you want to be? And why do you really want it? We've got to get to the point and leverage all those reasons. And it is all on you. And I always say it's good news because that means you have the control. We're not relying on other people. We need to get back into the frame of reference of who you are and that you can choose who you surround yourself with ultimately. Or at the very least, you can begin to choose better people in your life to kind of balance those scales. You've got to regain that personal power. In any given moment, you have a choice to choose differently. And if you choose differently and you get that resistance, because it will happen, embrace it and go, well, this is going to happen. I'm okay when everyone says no around me. I'm okay when even my unconscious mind is screaming no. Who are we to achieve our desires and our goals or that career or that relationship or that well-being? But in times of no, you have to be more louder with your yes and your declaration to do and be different. After a while, you'll start to cultivate your mind. You'll start to be the example to those other people. They will either fall away or they'll accommodate, or you'll actually start to be attracting better people in alignment with that frequency. And I say frequency because we are all energy. And sometimes you will repel people. It happens probably now. So when you start to project and radiate this new story that you choose to create, and I said choose to create, you will then absolutely attract different people. You will let some go, but you'll get better ones in. But you've got to make that choice. So if we really bring this back, we're remembering something else about ourselves that we have long forgotten. We were hypnotized by the world and the events to think that we weren't enough, that we weren't worthy of love or deserving of that goal or that dream. And then we fell into it, thinking it was a true story. But like all stories, we can rewrite them. And more importantly, we can fall back to that place, that level of who we really are on the inside. Now, I'm not going to suggest it is going to be that one of love or wholeness or beingness or peace or oneness and all those great feelings. But it's something that you can choose. It's something that you can uncover. It's something that you can begin to explore. We've forgotten the creativity and the curiosity of being a child when we thought anything was possible growing up. Maybe it's time to be more curious. Maybe it's time to remember what it was like to be without thoughts with boundaries, those limiting thoughts. Why not just play with those thoughts for a little bit? Let's just be curious of what could happen. What good things could happen from this situation? I wonder what could happen that can truly be the best thing for ourselves. Sometimes we've got to look after ourselves first. In fact, I always say we should, because otherwise people aren't getting your best self, because we're just depleting our energy and our own limitation. But if we start to put ourselves as number one, we're going to then be the best example and give our best self to those in our life. Therefore, they get the best version of you. So if you're ready to decide today, if you're ready to declare that, look, maybe I've been buying into too many stories from other people, that I bought into them thinking that they were true, thinking they were my reality. Maybe you're ready to give up those old reasons, or I would say a little bit harsher on the excuses of remaining the same. We've got to make that decision to decide differently. We've got to be more than we think we are. Now, you can surround yourself with good and great people. You can actually tune into these live videos or audios if you're going onto the podcast and so on. But immerse yourself with things which will give you a value, which actually gives you a return, which gives you more, that allows you to receive more. Look for the return investment by investing within yourself. And I'm not saying my programs or other people's programs. I'm talking the real stuff here of time. We got to invest the time to recognize our true self. Sometimes we've got to empty that cup of some of that water to allow more into our life. Sometimes we've just got to decide that even though I don't believe it yet, I am more. And I'm ready to do more, have more, be more. I'm ready to give more. I'm ready to be that example so I can start serving at a bigger level. That I can truly make an impact in the world. And making an impact is you just being the true self. It doesn't have to be wildlife changing, but the nature of you changing changes the universe, right? Because you are different. Therefore, the world and the universe eventually is different. So you being that story of transformation, that you going into the best and the greatness of you, then the world changes too. It has to. Sometimes I think we're a mirror of the world around us, as definitely when it comes to our perception. Sometimes we've got to realize the things which are showing up, that resistance, maybe there's a part of us unconsciously which is projecting it or radiating it. Maybe it's the fear, the worries, the doubts, the anxieties, all of those things. Sometimes we are projecting that, but once again, it's a projection. It's an illusion. It's an illusionary darkness. And if it is illusion, if it is a projection, why not let's just change the projection by working upon ourselves. Now, if it takes a year to do it, great. That means we've got another, depending on our age, 30, 40, 50, 60 years worth of life of greatness. So put that year into it. Sometimes it'll be like 8 weeks. Sometimes it'll be an hour. Sometimes it could be in a moment, because the moment to create a decision takes usually a moment. So why not a moment to let it go? But ultimately, you've got to create that story. I'm here to support in any way I can by doing these live videos or putting on the podcast and the app and so on. I don't mind putting the time in, but you've got to put the time in too. You've got to want it more than wanting to stay the same. Now, it sounds weird, and I've said this before. We've got to be more dedicated to changing rather being as dedicated as we are to remaining the same. And you might be going, Jose, I'm not dedicated to remaining the same. Well, sometimes we are, those reasons. And sometimes if we're not putting the time in, and you got to look for that yourself. Are you investing the time in every day on working upon yourself and actually looking for the lessons, looking for the solutions? Are we doing that self-care when we're waking up in the morning? Or are we just engaging into the crazy news and the crazy world and social media before we even get into ourself, getting into our presence of being in this moment, then going into the day? We've got to decide more on being happy and knowing ourselves and deciding to stay the same. Sometimes it will be investment. It's at least the accelerated way, I guess, right? Getting more expertise. But it's not the only way. It's the time that we put into it. It's what we really put that value. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Realize that whatever you think you are always more. And if you need someone to believe in you, I hope you know that I do believe in you. I honestly do. I hope to say that with as much congruency as I could really kind of muster, but I honestly believe that whatever you think you are always more. And once again, if you want to go ahead and download the free hypnosis app, go to freehypnosis.app. You can download hundreds of free episodes of coaching and hypnosis. You can download, with the in-app purchases, hundreds of hypnosis sessions, even creating your own ones in day and night version. You can unlock the whole app right now as well. But in the meantime, I wish you the very best. I hope there has been of value to you, even just one small bit. Many thanks, and I'll speak to you soon. Goodbye.